will come to meeting. Today we're going to get to hear from Department of Higher Education as well as Department of Natural Resources present their budget. They had some questions sent to them, and I want to thank them for working on the priority-based budgeting stuff that I'm hoping that we can get put into fruition, especially if I get to stay here longer to continue to push for that to happen. And then there's some other questions as we go through a different budget time than I've experienced on this committee in the last, about 5 years. So as we discuss the core changes, most of those are core changes on the way down, right? Let's make sure that we explain those and go through the NDIs, et cetera, much similar to what's been going on in the past. But if the Department of Higher Ed, Dr. Boggs would like to begin, and Leroy, that would be great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bennett Boggs. I'm the Commissioner of Higher Education and Workforce Development. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm going to make a couple of opening remarks, but I'll be brief. You've just given you time constraints. And then I'm going to defer to Deputy Commissioner Leroy Wade to walk us through the NDIs and anything else you want to hear about that. I'm pleased to have with us Liz Roberts as our Budget Director. We've got Leah Strid as our Legislative Liaison, and Julie Carter is our Director of Office of Workforce Development. So I'm glad that they're all here to also answer questions as you may need. The department aligns post-secondary education and public workforce systems for Missouri and to make opportunities available for Missourians, both looking at current needs and also preparing for future ones. And so it's a dual mission role. The department actually has two boards. We have the Coordinating Board for Higher Education, which are 9 members. 8 are selected to represent their congressional districts, and then we have 1 at large. By state statute, only 5 of the 9 can be from one political party. So it's an intentionally bipartisan board that makes a lot of the decisions in terms of institutions and their academic programming, their missions, their service areas, all those kinds of things. It's a board that helps make decisions when institutions are at odds in terms of things that need to be done and to work that out in terms of statewide perspective. We also have the State Workforce Development Board, which guides our public workforce development system. 28 members, they set the policy for our local workforce boards and guide state and federal employment and training programs. I think most of you know our department's relatively young. We were created in 2019. It was a merger of the Department of Higher Education with the Office of Workforce Development and the Missouri Economic Research and Information Center, which we call MERIC. We're the only department that looks like this in the nation. However, I'll have you know that in November, the governor of Colorado signed an executive order citing the Missouri model of what he wanted to move towards in that state. And he's in the final year of his term. So in the executive order, he's left it to his successor to implement the plan, but he's directed them to prepare to do that. We've also heard from 7 other states contacting us as to how do we now align workforce and education. Because we know in Missouri, in 2032, 65% of all jobs are going to require something past high school. Something past high school. 30% out of that 65 is going to be a bachelor's degree or higher. 35% is, let's say 30% is bachelor's and higher, 35 is bachelor's degrees and lower. So that means certificates, apprenticeships, on-the-job training. All of these things help push Missouri forward. So these are the things that we focus on in terms of our work and the way that we work together as an integrated model of higher education and workforce development. A couple of highlights from the year. Missouri is ranked 3rd in the nation for new and completed apprenticeships through the Apprenticeship Missouri. With more than 19,000 Missourians being paroled each year, we partner with the Department of Corrections on reentry services so that Missourians are being prepared to come back into their societies and communities ready to go to work. And that's good for the family, it's good for the community, it's actually good for the state, because if we do it well, it means there's lower costs, less recidivism. We operate 21 comprehensive Missouri job centers. Last year we served more than 70,000 Missourians seeking resume building, job skill training, interview skill training, things of that nature, matching them up for the local workforce. Through your appropriations, we provided $163 million in state financial aid to 66,000 students through 10 programs. We also, with our coordinating board, approved an addition of 140 new academic programs to help position our institutions to better serve Missourians and to meet state needs. However, I'll have you know, also deleted or inactivated 164 programs. Approved 140, deleted 164. That shows that our institutions are also looking to be efficient in eliminating programs that are no longer meeting the needs or in high demand. And finally, the department was able to provide $500,000 in funding to regional partners to assist with the recovery and rebuilding efforts in St. Louis after the storms struck in May. So each of these initiatives could be their own presentation. I won't go any longer with this except to say, just to emphasize how effectively an integrated department coupled with innovative college and university presidents, supported by a thoughtful coordinating board and partnering with our sister agencies, DESE, DED, DOLR, and DOC, are able to come together to develop new economic development opportunities, meet current and future workforce needs to strengthen Missouri and Missouri's families. Thank you very much. I'll take any questions you might have. Otherwise, I will now defer to Deputy Commissioner Wade.
I don't have to look very far either direction, do I, to know whether we have any questions? I do, and it's maybe something Dr. Boggs and Mr. Wade you were going to discuss later, but we discussed this a little bit earlier, not very much. I do want you to have a quick discussion about the legislature passed the Public Safety Recruitment and Retention Act, funded $5 million that originally started in the DPS budget, correct?
That's right.
It's been transferred, probably for good reason, who has the ability to be able to put that out without creating something else. But that $5 million was put in 26 last year in that budget, and then $5 million additionally are in the budget currently with that. So, number one, how's the transition going along? How much are you willing to say your wag on how much of that money is going to be spent out in 26? And then what do you think out of the 27? And Mr. Wade and I, over the years, have discussed that on 2 or 3 different programs where we made changes, and it takes a while for that to start up. So I just want to hear where you think the department's at on preparing to handle that money now and how much will come out.
I'll let Mr. Wade handle some of those details. I will say our staff looked to set that up, stand that program up quickly following last session. Usually it takes a number of months to pull those kind of things together and to meet the August usual timelines of academic years. And so we had some staff that really were putting in 12-hour days to get that going fast because we knew that was a priority for the governor and for the legislature. So I was very pleased to see that happen. It was a misfortune that it was the funds were assigned in the wrong direction. I'm glad we were able to create a workaround appropriately to be able to have access to the funds to get this stood up and going. But I do think we've now making this switch now so we can get it in the right place so that we can access the funds naturally.
So we received about a little over 500 applications for the current academic year, and that was the approach that we took, was that we were going to stand this up as quickly as we could, and so the intent was that we would start this year. We're still in the process of reviewing all of those applications and getting the money spent, but given what we see as a likely average, frankly, I think the $5 million is going to be really tight. I can't say for sure we're going to spend every dime of it, but it is going to come pretty close.
This year's money, Mr.
For
Wade?
this year's money. And next year again, we're still in the process of beginning to review applications for the coming year because the statute set the deadline for applications as December 15th. And so that's passed. By March 1st, we have to provide all of the applicants basically a decision telling them, yes, you're eligible, this is going to go forward, no, you're ineligible, and here's why. And so we're still in that process. We had about 750 applications for the coming year. So there's every possibility at this point, and again, we're so much at the beginning of this, it's hard to predict, but there's every possibility we're going to be back next year asking for a supplemental because I don't believe that in the long run the $5 million is going to be enough to sustain the program over the long haul. So that's kind of where we are in terms of the funding. Again, it's been an interesting process. Again, if you'll recall, the legislation was originally a tuition waiver program that would have taken place at the institutions. And then it got converted to a scholarship program. And in that conversion, there were some bumps along the road. There are some pieces of this that would have worked better as a tuition waiver than they do as a scholarship. We've done our best to work through those kinds of things, and I think we're in good shape in terms of administering the program. It's just trying to catch up now because of the rapid start.
You're not worried. You're going to be careful answering this. I know this, Mr. Wade. But you just brought up something that happens in the legislature. We know. You remember when a piece of my legislation caused great angst that everybody thought was good until the angst happened. Are there things that it would really be good for us to make little changes in statute to make this a cleaner process, or do you feel like things have been worked out and the department's going to be safe?
Well, I think we're going to be safe. I think we can administer the program as it's currently written. There are certainly things that and they aren't huge changes, but yeah, there are some things that we would like to see that could be changed. Honestly, the biggest one is about, there's a clawback provision that's a part of it. I think given the population we're serving, again, we're serving individuals who are policemen, firemen, EMTs that have been working in Missouri primarily. Either for them to be eligible, they have to have worked for 6 years. For their dependents to be eligible, they have to have worked 10 years. The chance that somebody's going to use this and then flee the state is pretty low, and the problem is that becomes both an administrative burden for the department, but also a burden for those individuals in terms of having to provide information to us about, are you still in the state, are you still employed, those kinds of things. And so there are some things like that that we believe would improve the program and make it more effective.
Thank you. Let's open the book and go.
All right. Well, in sort of an unusual situation, page 2 is where I start. We're starting with a new decision item. That's unusual from my perspective. Again, this is relates to the coordination core. This was a request from us for $365,000 and 1 FTE related to the passage of Senate Bill 150 in the last session. If you'll recall, that bill created a process that the department has to administer to identify 5 major transfer processes that will transfer 60 credit hours to complete those programs. We've identified some of those programs already, biology, psychology, nursing, teacher education. There's a 5th one, and it slips my mind. I apologize for that. But that's what this was put in place to implement that legislation. The governor did not recommend that funding. The next item is on page 4. This is the HEALS initiative. This is designed to increase micro-credential and registered apprenticeships in the healthcare area. The funding would have been provided from the Dell Foundation. We had reached out to them. It would have been just spending authority, $350,000. The governor did not recommend this. Next is page 6. This is the core item for coordination and administration. This is the central piece for the higher education part of our operation. Again, it includes things like labor force needs, research and analysis, wage analysis, those kinds of things, strategic planning for higher education, development of a unified budget, reviewing programs that institutions want to offer, those kinds of things. Again, the governor's recommendation is a core reduction of $702,000 and 16.54 FTE.
Okay, Mr. Wade, within this reduction here that looks to me like a reduction that's physically touching things, right? Taken away, it wasn't NDI. Within that, people, is it affecting people directly, or were they open positions, et cetera? And the dollar amount, was it within lapse or not?
It was not within labs. Again, we've been working on scenarios to to determine how to go about meeting this level of reduction. I think we can do that without it impacting staff. The FTE is a different issue. From a money perspective, we're still looking at both the PS and the E&E side of things, but I believe we can get through this, at least in the short term. The FTE is a different issue. We've been talking to the Office of Management or Budget and Planning about the possibility of us adjusting some of that. We have some vacant positions that we're certainly willing to give up as a part of this, but if we were to have to eliminate all 16 of these positions, that would affect existing staff.
Thank you.
Next is page, well, there's page 13. That's the flexibility request form. We aren't requesting any additional flex in any of these items, so unless you stop me, I'll go ahead and skip those as we get to those. With that, we would go to page 14. This is grant and scholarship administration. Again, as the commissioner indicated, we administer 11 student financial aid programs with the public safety recruitment and retention. In 2025, we served right at 66,000 students. $163 million were distributed to those students. The governor recommended a $66,000 reduction to this and 1.86 FTE reduction.
Okay, let's just go back to my previous question and the answer for this one.
The answer is the same in terms of, I think the dollar amount we can probably work our way through. I think we can meet that. The FTE is going to be a struggle. Again, we just talked about the issues with the public safety recruitment and retention. A lot of what we're doing is still manual work, and so we have to have people in order to handle those, to review applications, those kinds of things. And so this is really, the FTE is going to be a struggle in the terms of that. Again, I'll skip the flexibility request form and move on to page 21. That's the FAFSA filing. Again, $75,000. This is to help the agency be able to increase FAFSA filing. Again, that's, in some senses, that's the gateway to post-secondary education. If you're interested in financial aid, either federal, state, or institutional, the FAFSA is really the key to that. And so $75,000, and that was recommended by the governor. Next up is page 26. That's proprietary school administration. One of the core responsibilities of the coordinating board and the department is the oversight of certain kinds of private, primarily for-profit, but not exclusively, schools. And they run a wide range, very short kinds of programs, dog grooming, truck driving, up to degree level programs as well. Again, this is primarily spending authority. Most of the money that goes through this program is fee developed. So the schools pay to be certified, they pay to make certain kinds of changes. So the vast majority of the funding here is spending authority. It's out of those fees. So $466,000 or $446,000 recommended by the governor. The next item up is the proprietary school closure. Again, this is part of that same program. This allows us to use, and you'll see the next one is about the proprietary school bond. Every school that operates in the state that's licensed by the department posts a surety bond to cover their operation if students are damaged or there's any kind of malfeasance. Sometimes there is funding left over in that, and it's also used to collect student records and preserve those. And so this allows us to use some of that funding from those bonds in order to preserve records and work with students when schools close and they need that additional information. Again, $155,000 recommended by the governor.
Okay, with proprietary schools, I want to wait till we were done with that. I don't remember reading much about proprietary schools having tremendous trouble inside our state and closing during the last year. Things are fairly good in that sector right now, or, people are concerned about where kids are going to school, et cetera. Are they losing numbers horrendously and going to cause problems?
There's been a lot of change in that sector over the last, I would say, 5 or 6 years. But yeah, Missouri has been lucky in the sense that we've not experienced some of the really high-profile large school closures that some other states have experienced, and so we've done pretty good in that regard. I think, again, at this point, the sector is doing relatively well. Again, there's a lot of interest. I'll tell you that we're getting applications fairly regularly for this, but there aren't any burgeoning problems or issues that we see on the horizon. The third item in terms of proprietary programs, the proprietary school bond. Again, this is each school posts a bond depending on their tuition income, can be up to $100,000. This is $200,000 of spending authority. If we have to call up one of those bonds when a school closes or there's some problem, this gives us the authority to be able to take in that money and then reimburse students, at least for a portion of the tuition that they would have lost if that school closed. Next up is on page 45, that's Midwest Higher Education Compact. Missouri is one of 12 states that belongs to this compact. Our dues are $122,000 that was recommended by the governor. Again, we get a lot of various services from MEC. Next is page 51. This is a new decision item for CDL compliance. We had requested $65,000, and again, this would have been essentially a transfer. The one FTE is really the issue here. This was funded last year, but as a contract rather than a staff person, and so we're currently contracting with someone to provide some of this work. The department felt like that it would have been more effective if we had been able to actually employ a person to do this full time, because the workload's pretty large in that regard. Again, that the governor did not fund that. The $65,000 to continue the contracting is still in the core, but we did not get the governor did not recommend the FTE. The next one is on page 53. This is the out-of-state program increase. This is a spending authority increase to allow us to use some additional funds out of that related to the state authorization reciprocity agreement. Again, Missouri participates in this national process to look at distance education providers and provide a nationwide system that is oversight and regulating those kinds of institutions. This will just allow us to use the SARA funds that generate from fees to help out with the out-of-state program.
Okay, just a minute, Mr. Wade. Senator Williams.
Thank you. Just really quick, just so I'm clear, going back to the compliance auditor, what are you recommending for the benefit of the department that 65,000 be considered for the department to hire an employee?
Right.
And contrary to continuing to use a contract employee.
Well, again, we can continue to use it as is. Again, the contracting will work. It was just our thought that an employee, again, we're talking about a large number of CDL providers that are likely to require licensure that haven't been. It's based on a change at the federal level requiring, in order to get a CD, your training has to have been provided by an organization that's licensed and legal in the state. And so we're anticipating an increase in terms of those. And so the idea was that because this is a longer term issue, maybe an employee would be better. It's less about the 65,000, it's more about the one.
The efficiency of the department. So would it be challenging to hire a person in the department? Would it be challenging to find a person to work in the department and do the job?
I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay. Well, I'm just making sure the committee understands that, because it probably sounds like it'd be a better use of taxpayer dollars to get a person in a department and not continue to contract.
Right.
Okay,
That's
so-
the position that we feel like we should be
Okay.
in.
So we need to be talking about that and figuring out how we fix it. Right? Okay. I guess I'm the only person that understands. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, back to, on page 53. Yeah. If this is currently being managed with proprietary school certification fund, could there be a corresponding decrease in that funding? Should there be a decrease in that funding?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm sorry, Senator. Again, the 65,000 is in place right now, and we're contracting with an individual to provide these services. What this would do is basically establish the ability to hire another person, one FTE,
Okay.
And again,
Adding
we're actually
one, not
back on
transferring one. Okay.
page 51 is where we actually
Yeah.
are. The one FTE is really the issue here. The funding is already there. We need to continue to do that. I would hate to see that funding removed because, again, if we don't have the FTE, we want to continue to contract with someone because we really do need to review these schools and try and reduce the backlog that we have in that regard.
Yeah. Was somebody that had two sons, go get that before the federal law come in. Right? Get the value. I think they had to pay extra so they could get it done by that time. All right.
I think the next step is page 55, our federal grants and donations. There's no change there. Again, this is a placeholder if we have federal grants that we would apply for and receive $500,000 in spending authority. Page 60 is next. That's the other grants and donations. So grants such as the Dell grant that we talked about or some of those kinds of things would flow through this. Again, it's a placeholder spending authority $1 million. We did request on page 65, this is a new decision item, an increase in this in that spending authority of $525,000. The original request related to a grant from Jobs for the Future, but we were unsuccessful in terms of getting that. But what we would like to do is if we can maintain at least some of this increased spending authority in this area, particularly given the budget situation that we're in over the next several years. We feel like in order to accomplish some of the things that the department would like to, we're likely to want to need to use outside funding and more than we have in the past in order to get us through kind of this rough period. So again, we're happy to talk about what that might look like. Next up is on page 67. That's the legal expense fund, $1 in that. The next up is page 72. This is the Returning Heroes program. You'll recall Missouri statutes require that our public institutions reduce tuition for eligible veterans. At the undergraduate level, the maximum they can charge is $50 a credit hour. At the master's level, it's 30% of whatever the standard tuition is. And the statute also allows the department to request reimbursement for the institutions for the prior year. Last year, the institutions waived just a little less than $1.5 million, serving 432 veterans in that process. The governor did not recommend funding for that. Next up is on page 77, I believe. Whoops. Oh, I missed one. Page 75, I apologize.
Question.
Again, this was the request for some additional staff for grants and administration. Again, got two entirely new programs last year, the Public Safety Recruitment and Retention, but also passed was the Career and Tech Certificate Program. And you'll see that we had made a request about that. In our fiscal notes, we had indicated that we needed additional staff to do those. Two staff, $176,000 was the request. The governor did not recommend that. The next item is 77 now. This was the...
Mr. Wade, Senator May.
Listen, I know we're going through, I don't have a question on this page. I'm looking through the book because, you know, I move ahead. Does the St. Louis area on training and employment fall under you slate? Does that fall under
Yes, it does.
this?
It's a part of the... we work with them through our Office of Workforce Development.
Okay, so they're not in this book.
No, well, not specifically. Again, the funding that goes to them is a part of this, but it doesn't call them out separately.
Oh, okay, so we'll talk about it offline.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, I think we're on page 77. Again, this is this is the Career and Tech Certificate Program. This was passed as a part of Senate Bill 150 last year. Based on our fiscal note, we thought it was that it would require just slightly less than $4 million to operate the program. Governor did not recommend funding for the program. And again, I'll stop here because as we go through the financial aid programs, there's two items for each of these. One is the transfer amount. So there's an appropriation that transfers out of general revenue or other funds into the fund that this program has set up. Then there's a second one that is the spending authority that allows us to spend the funds once they're transferred into that fund. And so this is the transfer piece. This 3.9 or 3.89 million would be the transfer from general revenue. The next item on page 80 is the spending authority side of that. And you'll notice it's a little bit higher. The reason why the spending authority is typically higher than the transfer amount is because of the way the state accounts for its money. So we send out a scholarship to someone, they end up not being eligible. The money comes back to us. When we spend that again, that same money for another student, that gets counted twice. And so we have to have some additional spending authority to be able to cover those, respending those returns. And I just wanted to explain that because you'll see that over and over again in these. So the next one up is the transfer. It's on page 82 for the academic scholarship program. This is the Bright Flight program. Again, this provides scholarships to the top 5% of ACT and SAT test takers each year. The governor's recommendation is for a reduction of about 10.9 million from this program. You should know that, and you'll see later, there's an increase from MOHELA. Again, over the last several years, they've been providing about $6 million for Bright Flight access and A+. For this particular program, for Bright Flight, there will be a $1.5 million increase that will offset some of that from MOHELA. Next up is the spending authority for the Bright Flight program. Again, you can see no change there. The governor recommended the 29 million. Next up is the new decision item for some college, no credential re-engagement. This was a process that we've been trying to get started. We'd requested $3 million. This is really designed to try and identify individuals who have started college. They have some credits, but they've not completed a credential. And so working with some contractors, Re-Up is one of those that works in this particular space, if you've heard of them. They provide assistance to the institutions in terms of identifying students that might be interested in returning and completing their credentials. So it's one of the processes that we use and other states use to try and increase our post-secondary attainment. Again, $3 million was our request. The governor did not recommend this. Next up is another NDI on page 97. This is higher education funding. Again, as focus on data has increased, whether that's related to our proposed funding formula or other work that we're doing in terms of higher ed, it just takes people to be able to do those things. And so last year we had requested this 80,000 and one FTE. It wasn't funded then. Again, we came back this year. The need's still there, but the governor did not recommend that. The next item is on page 99. This is the Access Missouri Financial Assistance Program. This is our primary need-based program. We serve about somewhere between 45 and 50,000 students through this program each year. You'll notice the reduction here is $1.5 million in terms of the governor's recommendation. That will be backfilled by an additional 1.5 contribution from MOHELA. So ultimately there's really no change in terms of the amount that's available for access. Page 104 is the spending authority for that program. Again, no change there, 83.9 million. Now we get to on page 109, that's the MOHELA increase that I've been talking about. Again, $4 million addition, so for FY27, they would be providing $10 million in terms of assistance for our financial aid programs, $1.5 million to Access Missouri, $1.5 million to Bright Flight, and then $1 million will go to A+, which we'll get to shortly. Again, $4 million recommended by the governor.
Mr. Wade, you've had this question, not necessarily from me, but several times I heard it on the other side of the building, et cetera. As we use these MOHELA funds, if I remember right, those are collapsing to some extent. They're going down what's available. As we're using this money, how long would you perceive that this money's available to be able to backfill GR in other places? And as you're shaking your head, you've answered this in front of me multiple times. Just obviously, I didn't listen well enough or keep it in memory well enough, but we're doing it again, right?
We are doing it again. Again, it's hard for me to predict exactly what's
You
going
can't.
on. Again, MOHELA is largely a servicer for the federal student direct loan program. The margins there are very small. It's been a very tough market for them. There's a lot of changes going on. I think if MOHELA remains healthy and continues to be able to maintain its share of the servicing market, I would assume that they can continue to do this for a number of years into the future. But again, the market is so varied, and there's so many potential changes out there. It's really hard to predict very far out kind of what their financial situation is going to be.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Senator May.
Good morning. On the $4 million, where did you say it was going? Because I'm not showing it itemized in the book.
Right.
Where
I don't
that
think
fund?
I don't think it is. I made a note to myself so I could explain that. So $1.5 million will go to the Access Missouri program. $1.5 million goes to Bright Flight, and then $1 million to A+.
And why is it not itemized?
I'm sorry.
Why is it not itemized? Is it somewhere else?
Again, this was the governor's. We just didn't put it in. We got what we got in that regard. So, but as we go through and we're able to look at where the money is in terms of details, that's how we itemized it.
Okay, very good.
Senator Wade.
Thank you. Would you be able to just kind of repeat that funding breakdown? I know you discussed the Bright Flight program, A+ program. Could you just repeat what the amounts that are going to each program, please?
Right. For Access Missouri, it's $1.5 million, and for Bright Flight, it's $1.5 million, and then $1 million for A+. Makes up the $4 million.
Okay, and what was do you remember what we put into A+ last year?
There was no increase last year.
Okay.
We've been operating. That program has largely stabilized. There's still some change, but in terms of the number of students, we've kind of plateaued in terms of the students that are using it, and so we've been able to kind of maintain that for those students based on the current appropriation.
And then just out of curiosity, what would cause that plateau? Is it the decline in students enrolling in college, or is there an access problem where folks just don't know about the program and don't enroll?
I don't think
or
it's an access issue. I believe my experience has been that it's a pretty well understood, or people know that it exists. They may not know all of the mechanics of it, but they know of its existence. I think, again, it's hard for me to say definitively this is what's going on. Again, our high school graduating classes are at best stagnant. They're not growing. In some instance, they may be even declining a little bit. So I think that's part of the issue as well. Some may not see this if they're if they're headed to a trade school or something like that. And we've seen as the pandemic has kind of gotten behind us, we've seen a lot of growing interest in those shorter term kinds of programs. And so some of the students may have felt like, well, if that's what I'm going to go into, I don't need to use A+, that type of thing. But again, I don't have a definitive answer.
Okay, thank you.
I think the next item is page 111. That's a public safety recruitment and retention program. I'll tell you, there should have been, and it got missed, there should have been a $5 million core item that was in this. Again, the $5 million being moved from the Department of Public Safety over to higher ed and workforce development. So that explains the discrepancy between the department's request, which was $5.1 million, and the actual governor's recommendation is the $166,000. The $5 million is there. You just don't see it in the book because it got left out, unfortunately. The $166,000 increase is really for IT costs to incorporate this program into our existing financial aid administration system.
Okay, Mr. Wade, Senator Hudson's going to take over from that, like we discussed earlier. I'm going to go next door. Thank you very much.
You bet. Ready to move on?
Let's keep rolling.
All right. Page 113 is the next one. This is the spending authority for the public safety recruitment and retention. Again, the same issue here. We had requested 6, which would be the total amount of the spending authority. There should have been a $5 million core item that was in this, so that explains the discrepancy here and the $1 million recommendation by the governor. Up next is on page 115. This is a new decision item for Access Missouri. Last year in Senate Bill 150, the maximum award amounts for Access Missouri were increased both for the 4-year and the 2-year institutions. Based on our fiscal note review of that piece of legislation, we anticipate it take about $13 million additional for that program in order to fully fund those higher levels. Again, the governor did not recommend that change, so we'll essentially stay with the award levels we're at right now.
Okay, so I did have a question for this one. So will the scholarships then run at the same level as they have been in the most recent year?
Close. It's again, this is a balance between not just the amount of funding, but also the number of eligible students we have, and they're still in the process. The FAFSA is essentially the application for Access Missouri. They are still coming in, and so we don't know definitively how many
Sure.
additional students we might have. Assuming a relatively stable population, again, if we fund about the same number of students in 27 we did in 26, then yes, we'll be able to maintain that. If there's a change, it won't be a big one.
Okay.
It isn't likely. We're not going to see a huge influx of students, and so that would be the only thing that might change that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I think the next item we move on to, well, it's the spending authority piece for the Access Missouri, and again, the governor did not recommend that. The next one up is page 121. This is the transfer for the A-plus schools program. Again, the A-plus schools program is it's Missouri's Promise program, if you will. So if students do the things that they're supposed to, good attendance, good grades, stay out of trouble, those kinds of things, some mentoring and tutoring or job shadowing, then the promise is that we'll help them pay for their tuition and fees at a community college or an area vocational school. The governor's recommendation reduces this item by about $7.6 million. Again, there is $1 million backfill from Mohila that will offset some of that. Page 126 is the spending authority for the A-plus program. Again, no change there. Page 132 is the Fast Track Workforce Incentive Grant Program. Again, this is our adult-focused workforce-related program. We've been seeing a lot of growth there. Again, a good, successful program. We're serving about 1,500 students through this program right now. We're continuing to see some growth. The governor's recommendation is a reduction of about $400,000 to $6.3 million.
Okay, I want to jump in there on this one. So if my information is correct, FY25 has a lapse of $1.9 million. Could you kind of speak to what would be the impact if there was a larger core reduction in this program?
Again, there's the program is continuing to grow. Again, we've had some lapse in the past because it was in a growth mode. Last year we spent just slightly less than $6 million in terms of the program. I anticipate we'll be above $6 million this year. With this reduction, we do have some fund balance without additional funding, and assuming kind of continued growth. Again, our fund balance will take us through probably 2028, maybe into 2029. At that point, I would anticipate we'll have to be back and request a new decision item to cover this. But again, only time will tell if that growth rate continues. Sure. But yeah, we can continue to operate the program. Again, this cuts us very close, so I anticipate we'll be spending, carryover funds in order to be able to continue to fully fund this program, even in the current year, not just in 2027.
Thank you.
Page 138, I'm sorry, is the spending authority for the Fast Track program. Again, $8 million, I'm sorry, no change there. Page 144 is the transfer for the dual credit, dual enrollment scholarship. Again, this program pays the tuition and fees for students that are enrolled in either dual credit or dual enrollment coursework. It is a need-based program. Again, they have to be free and reduced lunch, and there's several other criteria that they can use to meet this, but it is a need-based program. Again, the governor reduced this appropriation by about $2.7 million. Again, we'll be able to continue to operate this program on this existing amount.
Senator May.
How many people are utilizing, how many students we have utilizing this program? Does it say?
It does not in this. It's in the program book has that kind of information, but the appropriation book does not. We served about this year. It looks like we're going to serve about 1,000 students through this program. It was about around 700 in 2025.
And that's statewide?
It is statewide, yes. There's an application that students submit, and then we work with the institutions on the amount that the student owes. And even if they're at so in many high school situations, maybe I'm taking psychology from Central Methodist University and I'm taking business from the University of Central Missouri. We'll pay both of those. It's not, we'll only pay one. However, whatever your bill is, we will pay that.
And it's the dual credit. So I would like to get the information on the students and across the state, where we get that. So can you please provide that? Thank you.
We can certainly put that together for you.
Thank you.
The next one is page 149. That's the spending authority for the dual credit, dual enrollment scholarship, $7 million, no change. Coming up now are a number of our smaller programs. Again, we operate a number of those. At page 154 is advanced placement. This is a program, it's a one-time $500 grant for individuals that score 3 or above on 2 math or science advanced placement tests. And again, it fluctuates from year to year. Sometimes we've served as many as 20 or 25 students in this, but other years, it's been less than 5, around 5 or 10. So it really does fluctuate depending on the circumstances. But it really is spending authority. It's not general revenue. This funding was provided by MOHELA. Page 159 is next. That's the Public Service Officer Survivor Grant Program. This is a program that allows us to assist individuals who, the children or spouses of individuals that were either public safety officers, police officers, firemen, EMTs, that are either killed or permanently and totally disabled in the line of duty. And so we paid students, we paid 15 students in this program last year. Again, no change, $273,000 is the appropriation. Page 164 is the next one that's up. This is the Wartime Veterans Survivor Program. Again, this provides up to 25 grants to spouses or children of Missouri veterans post 9/11 that were killed or became disabled in combat. We're running at that maximum right now. Again, it's capped by statute at 25 awards. That's where we are. Again, no change, $495,000 is the appropriation. Page 169 is the next one that's up. You ready for me to move forward? Okay, page 169 is where we are. This is the Kids Chance Scholarship Program. Again, this is a spending authority program. Over 10 years, a corpus of $1 million was created from the compensation program. Again, workplace compensation. Sorry. Again, we serve about 3 students. We can't spend any of the corpus. All we can spend is the interest that the corpus generates. Interest rates have been very, very low, so we've only been able to fund 1 or 2 students. As interest rates have increased, we have additional funds that we can use, and so we're going to serve 3 students this year, and it looks like we'll continue to be able to serve 3 students in 2027. again, 22,000 in spending authority. The next item, and this is the last of our small financial aid programs, this is the minority and underrepresented environmental literacy program, provides scholarships for individuals that are interested in entering the environmental field of study. The statute lays out the particular study areas that would be eligible for this. There's also a committee that selects the recipients of this. No change, 36.9 thousand for this program. Next up is the Loan Program Administration. Again, if you recall, for several decades, the Department of Higher Education was also a guarantor of the federal student loan program. These funds were generated as a part of that program, and we're continuing to spend those to provide that same kind of service in terms of outreach to individuals, default prevention, those kinds of things. Page 184 is the collection and transfer payment. This is the last time you'll see this. This is was a part of the operating loan program. This had to be in, I believe, a year or 2 years ago in order for us to make a final payment back to the U.S. Department of Education in order to close out the program. So this is the last time that you'll see this particular one. Next up is on page 189. This is the indirect cost rate request. We're currently using what's called a cost allocation plan in order to allocate. Again, we're an agency that has a lot of different funding streams, and so we have individuals that have mixed salary, if you will. The commissioner's office is an example of that, where he's paid out of several of those. In order to reconcile that with our federal grant, we have to allocate the funds correctly, and we have to have a process for doing that, so that so the commissioner doesn't get too much workforce money or get too much grant money. And so that's a very cumbersome process. What the Department of Labor has been encouraging us to do is to move to an indirect cost rate, which would set a set amount that would come off of each of the grants that we get, and create a pool that then we could use that, and it'd be much less onerous. Unfortunately, we've asked for the last couple of years, haven't been able to get this through. The 900,000 would create a pool to get us from where we are now to where those federal grants could actually sustain that. So that's why the 900,000 is in there. The governor did not recommend this. We'll move on to page 192. We're moving into the workforce development area. This is workforce administration. Again, this is primarily the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, Wagner-Pizer, Trade Adjustment Act. It's the administration of all of those programs. Again, no change there. The governor recommended 16.4 million and 306 staff. There's the flexibility form. I'll go ahead and skip that one, and then we'll move on to page 200. That's workforce autism. This is down in southeast Missouri. This is a contract that in the past has typically gone to the Taylor Institute, again, to provide both workforce transition, but also independent living skills for individuals that are on the autism spectrum, $300,000. Next is page 205. This is the core item for the Missouri Economic Research and Information Center. Again, that's the part that handles all of the labor market trends. When you see the unemployment rate, the monthly unemployment rate, that comes from this. The monthly jobs outlook, those kinds of things all come out of this particular office. The governor recommended a 295,000 reduction, core reduction here, and 2.6 FTE.
Okay, Mr. Wade, while we go through this on the core reduction on this one, as we've talked in the past, records show that there was fiscal year 2025 1.9 million that was unexpended, if I read my notes right. With that dollar amount that happened back at this point and the recommended core reduction, go back to the how many individuals with this core reduction directly impact and how much of it's going to be taken care of on the dollar side with the lapse. So
again, I think the lapse was really created, if you'll recall, the primary use of the general revenue piece that's in this area relates to what we call the P20W, preschool, 20 years of education into the workforce. system that we've set up that looks at, in a longitudinal sense, how are people doing? And it's a mechanism for us to be able to look at, if we applied this particular, we provided this particular assistance to individuals, how did that work out down the road? Did that really help them? Did they complete or not? And so that's where a lot of the money is. That program has still been in its stand-up phase, I would say. It's very young, maybe a year and a half, 2 years old. And so, and the appropriation was probably big at the beginning, but we're kind of growing into it, is what I would say. So again, I think we can weather this in terms of the dollar amount pretty well and continue to move forward. Again, where there is some slack in that program, there's no question about that. Again, but as I've said before, the FTE is probably going to be the challenge. So is that helpful? Again, I'll skip the flexibility request form. We'll move on to page 214. That's the Missouri Jobs Academy. This is really intended to be a build-out of a pilot program that we've been operating with Columbia Public Schools. This is about providing individuals in high school, juniors and seniors, that have indicated that they're not college-bound. Again, I'm not going on to college. I might do some trade. This provides those youth with some work-based learning. Again, they get some hands-on skills in a particular area. And we've seen really success in the Columbia Public Schools. I think we're in our second year of that pilot program. This $5 million and one staff person would have been designed to begin to extend that effort into additional high schools. Try and go. I don't know whether $5 million we got us statewide, but the intent is that we would go statewide with something like this. Everybody sees that in many instances, it's less about the skills that the students need. It's the workforce side of things. Do they know how the work works? How do I show up on time? How do I work with others? This really addresses those kinds of issues. Next up is on 217 is our workforce programs. This is primarily pass-through money. Senator May, you asked about SLATE. That's where their money would come through this particular appropriation. Again, this includes money for WIOA to our subrecipients and also to local workforce boards to really provide the frontline services to individuals that are looking for job assistance with resumes. But it's important to keep in mind we also work with businesses as well, helping them find individuals, doing job fairs to help them be able to fill the slots they have. So it's not just the worker side, it's also the business side that we work with. There is about a $1.5 million reduction in the general revenue in this. That's primarily one of the special programs. I didn't note which one it is, but it's not a core cut to these funds. It's a cut to a particular program that had been added at some point. Next up is on page 223 is the Missouri Works program. The governor recommended $400,000. There wasn't a core item here. This was in last year's budget, but it was in as a one-time, and so it didn't carry forward as a core. But then the governor went ahead and recommended $400,000. This for a program that serves statewide, serves historically underrepresented individuals gain entry into a joint contractor and labor-sponsored registered apprenticeship is what the funding does.
Okay,
Next
remember,
up.
Mr. Wade, you're on microphone because some of these things are legislative done, right?
Right.
Not
Exactly.
done. But this is another program like we go back to one earlier, the one dealing with law enforcement, first responders, et cetera. At this point, I've been told there's no money been expended out of this program yet. So I'm just asking, do you think it's similar to the one we discussed at the very beginning, that applications are coming in, part of that money will get out yet in our 26 budget or not?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of these require either RFPs or there's a lot of front end work that goes into this. So yeah, I believe that's going to be the case. I think they'll get the money expended before the end of the fiscal year.
Do you feel like it's going that direction?
Right.
Okay.
I can double check and if you'd like for me to follow up.
Yeah, we can. but-
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Senator May.
So this funding is to assist in entry into the construction manufacturing, right?
Right.
And so is it put out as an RFP?
I would have to go back and, I would assume so, but I'm not sure. I'll have to double check and see if it required an RFP. Do you remember?
This one did not,
Okay.
but we can look into the why behind that.
Okay.
So is this for students to apply?
Well, no, it's really to provide them, it would go to, the Missouri Works Initiative organization, and then they would use it to help students be able to access these. But yeah, it would pay their expenses for the apprenticeship.
Okay, so Missouri, how many around the state, Missouri Works Initiative?
I can't answer that question. I don't know. I can find out, but
Just one.
It's just one.
I think there's just one, yeah.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you.
Next up is on page 225. This is the federal spending increase on the workforce side. There's a supplemental request that's in, and the governor recommended for $4.3 million related to this. This is $1 million in FY27. This was a grant that the department received in order to assist with temporary employment with individuals related to the storms in last spring. And so this would allow companies to be able to hire people short-term to do cleanup kinds of work, reconstruction, those kinds of things. And so the vast majority of it we anticipate will be spent in the current year, thus the supplemental. But there was certainly the possibility that some would still move over into FY27. So that's why we're asking for this additional $1 million, just to be sure that we can fully expend those funds whenever we get the chance.
And the flexibility within PS and E&E being used to help facilitate and move this money quicker or not? I think it had 10% flex. My
This
notes
is
are-
all basically program distribution funds. I mean, it's all E&E, and so there's no PS involved at all.
At all, okay.
Right. Next up is Launch KC. Again, this is to provide education, curriculum, training, access to capital, and mentoring to support entrepreneurs. The department requested $350,000. The governor did not recommend this. Page 232 is computer program apprenticeships. Again, this was worked through vendors to provide Missouri residents with computer programming and coding training that's free to the participant. The core amount was $500,000. The governor did not recommend this item.
Senator May.
Was this the item that was paying for like the computer skills for people that were coming out of corrections too? Was it part
Not-
of that workforce program?
Not necessarily. This is if you're familiar with launch code.
Yes, I'm
or
very
codified,
familiar with launch
That
code.
that was what this originally was. It started out as 500,000. A couple of years ago, it was increased to $1 million, and then they said there had to be two contractors. It got vetoed back to 500,000 last year, and then obviously the governor did not recommend it this year.
Okay, very good.
Page 238 is Apprenticeship Missouri. Again, as the governor, I gave you a promotion. As the commissioner indicated, Missouri's been very, very successful in terms of our approach to apprenticeships. Again, $3 million to help us continue to expand Missouri's work in terms of apprenticeships. Again, the governor recommended it. Page 243 is Precision Health and Ag Science. This is a collaboration between Missouri Southern, the Missouri Southern Center for Advanced Professional Studies, Missouri Biotech Association, and Missouri Western to provide career opportunities for underserved populations to increase awareness and advance workforce development in the science industries. Again, the core amount was $2.3 million. The governor's recommended essentially a 50% reduction to $1,150,000. Next is page 248. This is Missouri S&T Project Lead the Way. Again, you remember, Project Lead the Way is designed to expose students in high school to STEM fields, to get them interested in that, and hopefully pursue a career in that area. They serve primarily high schools in the southwest and the southern part of the state. With that program, this has been in place for several years. $250,000 recommended by the governor.
You just stated, Mr. Wade, the direction from Missouri S&T that this project Lead the Way, but they somewhat are the state coordinator for Project Lead the Way, or am I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay. Any school that have, they take care of contest organizational things as well around the state for Project Lead the Way, instead of it being housed within career development with inside DESE.
Right.
It's housed at Missouri S&T.
That's exactly correct, yes.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to take a pause here. Again, we're moving into a different section. From here through most of the rest of the new decision items really relate to recommendations that the Coordinating Board for Higher Education made for our public institutions of higher education. And I'll go through these in detail, but I just wanted to give you a bit of an overview. Again, the Coordinating Board had recommended a 4% increase for the institutions across the board. That's community college, about $7.2 million for community college, $382,000 for state tech, $17.4 million for four-year institutions, and $18.8 for the University of Missouri. In addition to that cost of living increase, if you will, we had also, or the Coordinating Board had also recommended a $24.6 million payment to cover retirement increases in retirement costs for our colleges and universities. Again, that's been an issue off and on for the last several years. The department and the Coordinating Board also recommended $34.9 million in terms of maintenance and repair funding for our institutions. Again, we have an ongoing issue with deferred maintenance, and this wouldn't necessarily undo the deferred maintenance, but it would keep deferred maintenance from getting worse is really the intent. So I'll go ahead and go through these, and also the $1.4 million that we talked about for returning heroes. So I just wanted to give you all that kind of level setting so you knew where these numbers came from. So the first one, again, is on page 253. That's the maintenance and repair item. The department had recommended $34.9 million. The governor did not recommend this. That recommendation is based on a percent of the estimated replacement value of our public colleges and university campuses. Page 256 then is the retirement contribution that I had mentioned, again designed to help those institutions meet those increasing costs related to their retirement systems. Based on information we received from the institution, we requested $24.6 million. The governor did not recommend that. Page 258 is the core item for our community colleges. Again, this includes about $4 million that they use that can be up to 10% can be allocated, I believe, for maintenance and repair. Again, no change here. $181 million is the core amount. Page 263. 263 is the CPI increase. Again, this was a 4% request. The $7.2 million, the governor did not recommend that item. Page 265 is the tax offset, $3 million for the community colleges. Again, this allows them, they have statutory authority to offset someone's income tax return, state income tax return, to pay unpaid bills that are owed to them. Next is page 270. That's State Technical College of Missouri, their core appropriation. $9.5 million is the amount for that, again recommended by the governor. Page 276 is the department request for an increase, again a 4% increase. It was not recommended by the governor. At this point, each of these is essentially the same. There's a page for each of our public four-year institutions. I'm happy to go through those individually, or we can cover those. I've already talked about the amount that we've requested. The governor did not recommend an increase for those institutions. So it's, how would you want me to go through these individually? You want me to just skip over them? How would you like for me to pursue this?
I have no problem with skipping over them if no one else on the committee does.
Okay. Again, they're each individual, but they're all exactly the same. It's the core, there's an NDI the governor didn't recommend. So then we should probably skip to page 364. Yeah, this is the St. Louis International Collaboration. This is the first of the specialized programs. Again, this is a cooperation between the University of Missouri St. Louis and Global St. Louis, formerly St. Louis Israel Innovation Connection. Again, designed to help attract businesses from other countries into the St. Louis area. Again, the core amount's $2.4 million. The governor did recommend that.
You mean 384?
I'm sorry?
384?
Yeah, we're on page 384,
yes, I'm
correct?
sorry, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Page 390 is the next item. This is Missouri Telehealth Network. These are University of Missouri related programs. Again, governor recommended core amount $1.9 million. Page 395 is the Spinal Cord Injury Fund. Again, $1.5 million is the core. The governor recommended continuing that core. Page 400 is the Missouri Kidney Program. Again, both helps with dialysis and kidney transplants. 1.7 million is the core. Next up is the State Historical Society, page 405. Again, I think you're familiar with the Historical Society. Again, the core amount 4.68 million. Governor recommended continuing that. And then the last item is the State Seminary Fund, page 410. Again, the fund was created in the University of Missouri to support the School of Mines and the Ag School. This is interest that corpus earns, and this transfers it to them to be spent for those purposes. $275,000 is the core, and that's the end.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate y'all being here today, answering questions, and for your presentation. If there are no questions from the committee, we will move on to DNR at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Let me get out of your way here. Good job. Thank you, sir. How are you today? Good. How are you doing? Doing fine.
You go first.
I hope so. They told me to come sit up here, so.
Chairs are kind of low.
Yeah, I feel short.
Yeah, let's see.
All right, we are rolling right along. Now DNR, thank you for being here. You may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Senator. Members of the committee, Kurt Schaefer, the Director of the Department of Natural Resources. At the request of the chairman, we're going to move pretty quick, but obviously if anybody has any questions, we'll stop. We're happy to come to your office and have a discussion with you about any line item. So I am the Director of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. Our purpose is to protect human health and the environment and manage our natural resources. So we have 5 divisions at the Department of Natural Resources. We have the Division of Environmental Quality. That's the largest division, about 760 employees. That's the one that does all of the environmental permitting. So when you think about all the environmental stuff we do, that's DEQ, the Division of Environmental Quality. We have the Division of State Parks, which oversees all 93 state parks and historic sites. And I will say again, I believe we have the best park system in the country. The Missouri Geological Survey, also called MGS, that is our entity that deals with geological resources. They deal with wells, for example. Very engaged right now in critical minerals development here in the state of Missouri. They also deal with water, but not in terms of pollution. They deal with water in terms of quantity. So, for example, wells, extracting groundwater, water in the Missouri River, things like that. That's all things that they monitor. They work very closely with agricultural groups on a lot of those issues, but they are essentially our mineral and water entity. And then we have the Division of Energy. So the Division of Energy is kind of interesting. Over the years, it's moved back and forth between DNR and the Department of Economic Development. They give out some federal money for low-income weatherization and things like that. but they really haven't done much beyond that. They were really intended always to be the energy policy agency for the state of Missouri, because they're not, unlike DEQ, who issues permits, energy is not regulatory in any way. They're just a policy group. And so the last time the state did a comprehensive statewide energy policy was 2014. I think at the time, obviously, it was Governor Nixon, it was President Obama. The future of energy looked a lot different then than it does now. And so when you go back and you look at that report, it seems pretty antiquated now compared to where we are in 2026. So we did just go out on an RFP. We granted a contract to a company called Guidehouse to do a new statewide environmental or statewide energy plan. We expect to have that final report done in September. And we've talked to many people, both in the Senate and in the House, because what we anticipate is both the House and Senate, as well as the governor, really looking at a lot of legislation next session that's going to come out of that plan. That plan is going to be, I'll just tell you now, the plan that was done in 2014 was very intermittent power heavy, wind and solar, in large part because there was a tremendous amount of federal money at that time that was pouring into states for those purposes. With the growth that we're looking at now, because really, I mean, most people agree that nationally, not just in Missouri, but nationally, we're looking at about 3% annual growth until 2040 on increase in electricity demand. We have never really experienced that in this country before. The largest growth like that before was really the late 60s, early 70s, and it corresponded with a growth in GDP. So you can think about the fact that there's a massive growth in electricity use, but there's also a lot of new plants being built, you know, automobile plants and things like that. We're at the first time ever where we're seeing that type of growth without a corresponding growth in GDP. So it's a much, much different dynamic, and it really lends itself to dispatchable power more than intermittent power. And dispatchable power is natural gas, it's coal, and it's nuclear. And so because of a lot of things that are going on around the world, including with the federal government on carbon emissions with dispatchable power, it really makes nuclear the most viable option. We are a state, obviously, with a nuclear plant already, and so a lot of the focus of this plan will be towards nuclear. But it will also look at other forms as well. And then the last division we have, the fifth one, is the Division of Administrative Support. They do all our things like HR and things like that, but also I think one of the biggest things is they have a tremendous amount of federal money that runs through them. They are really a financial entity more than anything else. We have about over $1.5 billion of federal money that runs through the department, in large part for wastewater and drinking water for municipalities, particularly smaller municipalities, but also larger as well. So we'll hear from all of these five. They're going to run through their portions of the budget book. We do have two administratively attached entities to the department. So we have a multitude of boards and commissions that work with our programs that we have more input on, but we do have two that are housed in the department that really, they're housed there administratively, but we really don't control them in any way. One is the Environmental Improvement and Energy Resources Authority, also known as EIERA. We can talk about them when they come up, and then also PSTF, which is the Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance Fund. So they are housed in DNR, they're in our budget book, but they're not really a part of us. So a couple of things that are priorities for the department. Governor Kehoe is working at the speed of business. That's something that we've taken very seriously, and I believe we're moving things pretty quickly in the department. Compliance assistance is another big initiative of ours right now. We're getting out there on the front end and helping people learn how to comply rather than waiting until something bad happens and then telling them they shouldn't have done that. You get much better compliance if you're talking to people ahead of time. So we're working on that. As I mentioned, energy production is a huge issue that we're working on right now, particularly with that statewide energy plan. That will be a big thing that we're doing. And kind of the companion piece to that both implicates both the Division of Energy as well as MGS, and that is the development of critical minerals. Missouri is a top critical mineral possessing state in the country. USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, they're the ones that determine what is a critical mineral. It is based on economic value and strategic importance for the country. Currently, there are 60. We have 36 in Missouri that are economically viable. Right now, one of our biggest obstacles in dealing with this is EPA. We've all been involved in it, including in D.C., and we're working on that. But, I mean, President Trump just came out the other day with a new plan to say he wants a strategic stockpile of critical minerals. And just so everybody understands the importance of that, so right now, critical minerals, and it applies to rare earth minerals as well, regardless of where they're mined in the world. It could be Australia, Africa, it could be the United States. Over 90% of those materials are all processed in China. So that raw ore is sent to China. What it has created is China having a monopoly, essentially, on those materials, and it really comes into play in national security because a lot of those critical minerals, in addition to being in your phone and your laptop, they're extremely important to the military in military systems. And so that's the purpose of why the president is trying to get control of some of this back. And Missouri certainly has a lot to contribute to that discussion, and we hope to do that because we think that can be done in an environmentally responsible manner. Water infrastructure is another big issue with us. Just told you we passed through a lot of federal money for drinking water and wastewater, especially to smaller communities. So those are some of our priorities. Our budget is approximately $2.3 billion. We have 1,735 FTE, which is, that number is pretty stagnant. Let's see, DNR, the Director's Office Operations Core starts on page 3. I'm going to touch on that briefly before I bring up the individual divisions to talk about where the real money is. But that's HR, accounting, budget, internal audit, and general services. That's a core budget of $6.3 million and 75 FTE. And what you're going to see from that, obviously, and everything else, is we get very, very little GR. We are predominantly either fee-driven or driven by federal funds. I'm going to mention 2 NDIs really quickly. One is on page 14. This NDI is for $4 million from GR. This is actually to develop a new permitting system. We actually got that money last year. It didn't all get implemented because we can talk about later why that's kind of slowed down a little bit. But we are anticipating getting that done this year. Rather than putting that in 17, budget and planning wanted that as an NDI in 6, which is what we did, but it's not really new. That's $4 million for a new permitting system. Our computer system is really antiquated. Our IT is an issue. You still have to submit things basically if you want to get them done in paper. So we issue a lot of permits to a lot of things that are time critical. You know, whether that's, you know, an engineering plan for a wastewater system, a drinking water system, and things like that. Concentrated animal feeding operations submit their plans to us. We want a permitting system that is online so that you as the permittee can just get online and do it yourself. You don't have to rely on somebody else to do it. And the system that we're looking at is that permit works its way through the system. You, as the permittee, would be able to go in at any time and see the notes from the various people at DNR as they're working on that permit. You could see exactly where it is. We field a ton of calls from people with pending permits just asking where their permit is in the process. So just alone, that would save a lot of time. I mean, in 2026, it's amazing that this is where we are, but we're really trying to fix this problem, and it's going to help all of the entities and people that get permits from us. So that's our first NDI. The second NDI is for other funds. It's going to allow the department to expand its internal audit program. Right now, we do rely somewhat on outside auditors. We do have internal auditors. This is going to help us do more internal auditing, so it's cheaper and we can do it faster. Let's see. Those are the 2 NDIs I wanted to mention. There's going to be other issues. Obviously, the programs will mention, but we're going to start out with Art Gooden. Art is the director of DEQ, the Division of Environmental Quality, and he's going to start.
Director, before, I apologize
Yes.
for not being here at the very beginning, and it seems like some of the things that are on my list that I wanted to ask, I want you to review those with me again, if
Sure.
you don't mind. It won't take a tremendous amount of time first, but I was not in the room. I was told that you did talk about the importance of Missouri River and maybe something that's
I haven't
happened.
touched on that yet, but I will. I'm happy to talk about that. And Carrie Bridges, she's the director of MGS, probably talk about that too. But there is an issue there, yes, that I'd be happy to talk about.
Okay, I do want to talk about that.
Okay.
I think you know the boundary of my district, something called the Missouri River.
Yes.
And as a young man, not only did I fish and camp on that, but I'm sure the water for my community and a bunch of other things on that. And it seems to me like we're getting in a dangerous spot within our country. So we can do it later whenever you have it timed or now. And then the second thing, and I also have it marked on a page of something I was looking at yesterday, critical minerals. People have been coming to me from this place, and this place about supporting critical minerals in our state. Those groups are telling me we may be the best state in the nation for availability of critical minerals. And I don't think those people are in silos, so I'm asking you within DNR to tell me, no, Senator, they're not all in silos. We're trying to work together to move this forward, because I've had people associated with higher ed talking to me. I've had private industries talking to me about trying to develop something. My guess is your agency is going to be very, very at the tip of the spear, allowing anything to happen. Are we working together to get something done?
Yes. Well, first of all, you're the chairman, and I would never tell you you're wrong, even if you are, but you're not wrong. Yeah, multiple entities working on this. Missouri S&T, the whole university system's big on this. Let's do the river first. And I actually have to testify on a bill at 10, so I'm going to make this really
Okay.
quick if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman. So on the Missouri River, the flow of the Missouri River, the quantity of water that goes to the Missouri River, it has been a fight, particularly with the upper basin states, for decades. When I was an assistant attorney general back in the 90s, we were having this fight with the upper basin states. Missouri has always held its ground on this, because the upper basin states want to divert more water for their own use, but lower basin states, particularly Missouri and Iowa, have really been fighting that. Kansas, a little bit less, because Kansas has some ulterior motives on diverting water that goes through Kansas out of the Missouri River. But aside from that, one thing that happened recently, and this was a federal appropriations bill that has now been passed both in the U.S. House and Senate and signed by the president, for the very first time spends $50 million of federal money to divert water out of the Missouri River into North Dakota for a project. The acronym is NDAWS. It's the Eastern North Dakota Water System. This is the first piece of a project called the Garrison Diversion, which we have been fighting since the 1990s when the plan first came up. It would divert water out of the Missouri River, so it would lower the level of water that flows into Missouri. It would divert it over to eastern North Dakota and ultimately into Canada. And ultimately, the watershed where that would end up would be the Hudson Bay watershed in Canada. It is a big deal because we have fought this now really for almost 40 years, and this is the first camel's nose under the tent that we have ever seen. I just wrote an op-ed on this, and I think I told you that. It went out late yesterday. But Congressman Graves has been really, really good at making this a top priority of fighting this, and has been very successful in it. Kept it out of the House bill. The bill went to the U.S. Senate. It got put in by Senator Hoeven from North Dakota, and it was left in. Senator Hoeven then put out a press release that said this is just the first part of diverting more water out of the Missouri River. I can't stress enough that we cannot let that happen. Number one, it's extremely important for agriculture, but number two, every power plant, every drinking water plant, and every wastewater plant along that river relies on a certain flow in that river. And as that diminishes, especially when we see times of drought, I mean, you could see it. We have come close in the past to actually having to tell power plants they have to shut down because the intake's not there. Callaway Nuclear Plant, that's another one. Takes water into the plant for cooling, discharges water back out.
This would affect Brownsville too,
It would affect-
right? Hasn't it been, Brownsville's had problems
Yes.
at different times,
It
not
would
in our
affect
state. but-
yes, everything from electricity manufacturing to industry to agriculture. It should be a top priority of the state of Missouri to make sure that, number one, it's unfortunate that it's happened to the extent it has, but to not let it go any farther. And so that's why I did an op-ed, and we'll try and get that out there so people that see that, because I think people lose sight of how important the Missouri River is to the economy of the state of Missouri. So that'll be a major issue for us, and Carrie Bridges can talk more about that when she's up here with MGS. The other issue, I believe, was critical minerals. So I mentioned a little bit before you came, Missouri has 36 of the 60. Here, I'll just be candid. Here's the issue that we've got. Critical minerals occur and exist in the same place as historic lead mining in the state of Missouri. And so a lot of those historic lead mining sites are surplus sites, which are controlled by EPA, and basically all activity is essentially limited. So what we have tried to have a discussion with EPA of, you can still have environmental responsibility for historic lead mining districts, but also allow for the development of critical minerals, which are not only important to those counties, some of which in southeast Missouri are some of the poorest counties in the state, which used to actually have a middle class. And then after lead mining stopped, all of that was lost. So regardless of your thought on that and lead mining, it's the reality of economics in the state of Missouri. But now we believe that critical minerals can be developed in a responsible way, in a way that protects human health and the environment. But we need to get that discussion going, and so far EPA has been not wanting to have that discussion. So I know it's been a top priority for Governor Kehoe. I know that he has actually discussed this, I believe, with the president and others. I have had calls with Lee Zeldin, the administrator of EPA nationally, on this issue. We are trying to get somewhere on this, but something's got to break loose on this. Because again, I think before you got in here, we mentioned just the other day, the president just announced a new initiative to stockpile critical minerals, basically to offset the threat posed by China possessing over 90% of critical mineral development. So we're working on it. It is a top priority for us. There's not a day that goes by that we don't have some issue, whether it's a conversation with somebody at EPA, somebody in DC, somebody at DOD, somebody at Department of Defense, somebody on this issue. But we're pushing it as hard as we can.
Thank you, Director, very much, both those things. Please keep me informed about the river.
Will do.
Miles of my district line
Yeah.
and communities associated with that. Maybe a little senator in Missouri can't do anything, but at least be loud when it needs to be.
I think the more of
happening.
us that are loud on it, the more it puts pressure on those that are in a position to do something about it.
Okay,
Thank you, Senator.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Any other
excuse me.
questions? Don't have to look far, do I?
I remember those days, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Art Gooden, Director of the Division of Environmental Quality. Today I will be presenting the division's FY27 budget. The Division of Environmental Quality works with Missouri businesses, communities, and citizens to promote safe drinking water, clean air, clean water, and sound waste management. We also oversee cleanups of contamination and respond to environmental emergencies. The division's budget starts on page 21 of the Governor's recommended budget book. The division's budget is divided into 8 areas consisting of 6 environmental programs, regional offices, and a small administrative group. Our first tab is on page 24, Financial Assistance Center Operating Core. This core includes a governor recommended reduction of $778 general revenue in expense and equipment. Next on page 32 is the Financial Assistance Center Water Infrastructure PSD core.
Just a minute, sir. This was also touched on, but I'd like for the other committee member here to hear it and anybody else that's listening in. Let's go back to that permitting application. The money was there. OA, ITSD is people working on that process. We need to, the slowdown just getting through government is what, as I'm looking at somebody that works for the government, but it's a portion of the government keeping us from being able to get this done. Do we hope that it'll be done at the end of this year?
I believe that is the plan.
Yeah.
I would sure like to see it.
Okay. If it will help for me to hook onto it with a tractor and drag it a little faster through the process, be good, because those are the people that need, there's probably lots of people that need it, but for sure agriculture needs this system to be, when we got tractors run by satellite and we're still filling out stuff on paper and checking it is wrong.
I won't disagree with
Okay.
it all. No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Page 32, Financial Assistance Center Water Infrastructure PSD core. We are voluntarily reducing this core by $923,141 other funds. Next on page 39, SRF and Federal Appropriation Increase, NDI. The Governor's recommended pass-through budget for this item will allow for encumbering of projects awarded in the FY26 and allow for encumbering of anticipated new awards for SRF infrastructure loan and grant commitments in FY27. This request will address the current record demand to provide low-interest loans and grants to Missouri communities to fund infrastructure projects. The federal appropriation increase is to allow the department to accept the allotments for FFY25 and FFY26 to implement the sewer overflow and stormwater reuse municipal grant program. Next on pages 43 and 48, Financial Assistance Center GR Water and Wastewater Projects, no change. Next on pages 53, 58, 63, 68, 70, and 75 are general revenue projects. The Governor's recommended budget moves these to AB 17. Next on page 77, Water Protection Program Operating Core. This core includes a Governor recommended reduction of $170,864 general revenue in expense and equipment, and we're reducing this core by $13,214 one-time other funds in expense and equipment for FY26. We're requesting a core reallocation of approximately $750,000 in 11 FTE to the Water Protection Program from the regional offices as a result of the July 2025 realignment within the Division of Environmental Quality. The reorganization moves central field operations from the regional offices to the Water Protection Program to improve efficiency of operations. Next on page 86, Water Protection Program PSD core. We are voluntarily reducing this core by $500,000 Water Quality Study Grant Authority from other funds. Next on page 93, CAFO closures PSD, no change. Next on page 99, Water Protection Program, Water Quality Monitoring PSD Elk River, no change. Next on page 104, Air Pollution Control Program Operating Core. This core includes a governor recommended reduction of $27,044 general revenue in expense and equipment. On page 112, Air Pollution Control Program PSD core. We are voluntarily reducing this core by $1 million PSD and $8.5 million PSD other funds. On page 118, Environmental Remediation Program Operating Core, no changes. On page 125, Hazardous Sites PSD core. We're voluntarily reducing this core by $500,000, Contaminated Sites Federal PSD. On page 130, Haz Waste Fund transfer to Radioactive Waste Investigation Fund. The governor's recommended budget includes a core reduction of transfer authority from the Hazardous Waste Fund to the Radioactive Waste Investigation Fund pursuant to recent law changes which remove the authority to transfer from the Hazardous Waste Fund. On page 135, Superfund Obligations Core, GR transfer, and new decision item on page 141 combined. The governor's recommended budget includes a core general revenue transfer and a new decision item to address two things. First is the balance of the state's 10% cost share obligations for EPA remedial action expenditures at 8 Superfund sites. Second is for the operation and maintenance costs associated with 12 cleanup sites. Details are included on pages 136 and 143 of the budget book.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I don't want to go through and read it. You probably tell me that's under, it's in there. If you read, for our 10%, are we part of decision-making at all, or we just donate our 10% and the Fed does all the decision-making?
We are part of the decision-making. We have to sign a contract with them to do that work, and we are actively making sure that we're making the right decisions for Missouri. We've got some contracts that are up right now that we're working with EPA to only
Okay.
spend what we need to.
Thank you. I didn't know whether it's my spousal relationship or whether we really had any. I hope she's not listening.
Well, I mean, I will say they kind of get the ultimate say, but we are in a fight in southwest Missouri right now over a blank, they just want a blank check for 10% of whatever they say it is, and we have refused to do that. So we're currently in those conversations with them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have to go testify on another bill in Commerce. Jake Buxton, Deputy Director, come up if you don't mind.
Thank you, Director.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I believe we're at page 145, agency-wide core for petroleum-related activities, no changes. Page 151, Waste Management Program Operations Core. We are voluntarily adjusting this core by shifting $185,000 federal PS and 3.55 FTE to other funds to better align the budget with planned spending by fund type. Page 159, Solid Waste Management Program PSD Core. The department's request includes a $500,000 reallocation within the budget from the Solid Waste Management Grants appropriation to the Scrap Tire Grants appropriation. Page 166, Solid Waste Forfeitures PSD Core, no change. Page 172, Regional Offices Operations Core. This core includes a governor-recommended reduction of $29,425 general revenue in expense and equipment and tuition reimbursement expenses. We're requesting a core reallocation of approximately $750,000 and 11 FTE to the Water Protection Program from the regional offices as a result of the July 2025 realignment within the Division of Environmental Quality, which was done to move the central field operations from the regional offices to the Water Protection Program to improve efficiency. We're also voluntarily adjusting this core by shifting $710,000 federal PS and 14 FTE to other funds to better align the budget with planned spending by fund type, and shifting $85,000 expense and equipment federal to other funds to better align the budget with planned spending by fund type. Page 143, Environmental Services Program Operating Core. This core includes a governor-recommended reduction of $23,562 general revenue in expense and equipment. We're adjusting this core by reducing $13,214 one-time other funds expense and equipment authority from the FY26 budget. Page 191, Environmental Services Program Health Lab Moving Costs, NDI. The governor's recommended budget includes a one-time cost to relocate the Environmental Services Program laboratory instruments, laboratory chemicals, field instruments, and offices. This includes packaging, moving, startup procedures, and recalibration of instruments, and packing and moving of hazardous chemicals. On page 195, Environmental Services Program Hazardous Substance Analysis and Emergency Response, PSD Corps, no changes. Page 200, Division of Environmental Quality Administration Operating Corps, no changes. Page 206, Technical Assistance Grants, PSD Corps, no changes. This concludes my presentation for DEQ, and unless you have questions, I'll turn it back to Deputy Director Buxton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Art. Next, I'm going to call Carrie Bridges. She's our Division Director of the Missouri Geological Survey. And as she comes up, I will say, Senator, some of the questions you were asking about workforce development, Carrie and her team do a great job of working, especially with Rolla S&T, on a lot of the professional development opportunities they have in that space, as well as with UMKC and others. So you'll hear about that and an NDI that she has, and everything else MGS is doing.
Hi, good morning, Chair and Vice Chair. My name is Carrie Bridges. I am State Geologist and Director of the Missouri Geological Survey. Our office is charged with bringing applied earth science to bear in support of challenges facing our state in water, mineral, and energy resources, soil conservation, public safety, environmental protection, and economic development. Our division's budget begins on page 211 with the Geological Survey Operations Corps and includes a core reduction. Our first recommended new decision item is critical minerals exploration on page 226. This new decision item supports ongoing and new collaborations with state, federal, university, and private partners to catalyze critical minerals interest in the Midwest. Pre-competitive geoscience data collection and dissemination is key to exploration success and incentivizing the development of critical minerals in Missouri.
Before you go on, and I don't want us to take time, extra time doesn't need to be done, but you heard the director answer my question. Sounds like it probably would have been good to ask you the same question. Is there anything you want to add? Director's not here, so
Certainly. Well, I certainly agree. Missouri is a great place. We are really considered a frontier region for critical minerals development because of the geology that we have here in the state. And we are working hard with many entities throughout the state to collaborate and coordinate, so including the University of Science and Technology in Rolla, as well as UMKC. They have a critical minerals crossroads that they're working on. S&T is also the lead of a tech hub that's been designated for the nation, only one of two that are critical minerals related, focusing on the 14-county area down there to focus on the critical minerals development, but also the workforce development, bringing in, both the primary mining work, but also anything that's ancillary and attached to that, equipment movers and all of those types of things to develop that. That group involves some community colleges as well, the workforce development folks, the regional planning commissions, and so forth. As an agency, MGS, we meet monthly with some folks with industry and with universities to coordinate and collaborate as well on our efforts to make sure that we're supporting each other, that we're working in concert together and complementing each other in those areas to try to drive this work in the state.
That tech hub that she just mentioned, Senator, is a really cool concept. Rolla, they're going to be building a test facility in Rolla where, because it's not just getting the minerals out of the ground, it's also processing them into what you need them to be. And that's really where a lot of that cost comes from. And right now, a lot of that's happening in China and then being brought back to the United States. And so what they're doing is they're working specifically with industry to provide them a place where they can test new technology on processing in either a more efficient way or in a cleaner way for the environment. So
those
that they don't have
dollars
to,
for Rolla were federal dollars, right? There's a
Yes.
federal grant.
For that tech
Touch
hub.
UMKC as well, or not? Do I remember that?
Yes, UMKC is NSF engine grant,
They
and
have a
Rolla is
piece.
EDA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's two different programs, and they're really focusing on two different things. But that facility, I think UMKC through their tech hub's working on a lot of that workforce development as well. But we're also going to be seeing abilities to do research and development of new processes in Rolla, and they're building that facility for industry to be able to use so that they don't have to build their own infrastructure. So it's going to be an attractional model to not just mine it, because obviously, as the director said, we have it here, but also to process it here.
Okay. Mr. Bunkson, you got a pretty good guess at my age. This has been going on probably in you guys' world for a long time, worried about critical minerals. But it finally becomes some kind of a public outcry, I'm going to guess in the last 5 to 10 years. Is when we really started on that. Will I be alive to see any of this come to fruition where we're truly doing it, or is there going to be enough things get in the way that I'll be dead before I read in the paper that we're actually accomplishing it?
Well, Senator, I firmly believe, and just my guess on your age, that you have about another 60 years in you. So I would assume that you are
Somewhere
definitely
at
gonna
max
see it.
14.
No, it's our hope, Senator, and I think in this current administration, there were multiple executive orders that are really trying to remove barriers, as the director talked about earlier. We still have some in the federal government, and we're working through those things. But the great work that MGS is doing, Carrie and her team, trying to pull in universities and trying to pull in the private sector so that we can streamline some of this stuff, I think you will see it very quickly. It is our goal, obviously. And as the director mentioned as well, the governor, this is a top priority for the governor as well, and he's told us to move at the speed of business. So we are trying to get it done as expeditiously as possible.
Okay, I'll try to stay away from philosophical questions from now on. Thank you. It was a good answer.
All right, so next is on page 230 is our final new decision item, is the Soil and Water Conservation Program Engineering Unit. This is increased authority and FTE are needed to establish an engineering unit within our Soil and Water Conservation Program to maintain our technical capacity and timely review for the State Soil and Water Cost Share Program and to offset the reduction in assistance that's been provided by our federal partners. This will expedite payments to agricultural landowners. The Resource Development and Sustainability PSD core is found on page 233 and includes a core reduction. The Mined Land Reclamation Studies PSD core is found on page 240 and there are no changes.
I think we're on are you on 240?
We're on 240, if you want to proceed unless
Yep,
you want to.
240.
Yes.
Make sure that I'm in the right.
Resource. 233 is the water resource, is the resource development and sustainability. Yes.
I was not paying attention and we went past it.
Yes, so this is, this contains is on 233 and contains a core reduction. The reduction includes the 1.9 million of one-time expense and equipment authority for the FY 2026 budget and a governor's recommended core reduction of about 92,000 expense and equipment from general revenue from the state water plan.
We discussed this in my office. I just like a bulleted list of what some of those programs, some of those projects that we're looking at.
Okay.
Instead of me chasing a bunch of people around the building, if you can get somebody to email or send that to me. I want to say there's 4, but if there's more than that,
For the multipurpose fund.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think you might be talking about the multi-purpose fund, which is we're still yet to get to, so we can talk about that too as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, you bet.
Yes.
You're fine. You're fine.
All right. So on page 246 is the oil and gas wells PSD core, and there are no changes there. The abandoned oil and gas wells PSD core is found on page 252. This core was fully reallocated to the previously mentioned oil and gas wells PSD core in the FY 2025 budget. The soil and water conservation PSD core is found on page 258 and no changes. The no-till drill PSD core is found on page 265. This core was reallocated to the soil and water conservation PSD core in the FY 2025 budget. The mined land reclamation transfer core is found on page 271, no changes. And the multipurpose water resource program transfer core is found on page 277 and includes a core reduction.
And then I will say you did want kind of a list of what our understanding of the projects were. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
We'll follow.
no description of them, just what those lists, because I think I've been paying enough attention over the last few years to know where those are at. But I would like to keep track of them, especially since, you know, you guys proposed 32, shy of 32 million. Governor's budget's at 20, so want to see where those possible holes could be at.
Yeah, and we work together with them because obviously that fund does have a fund balance right now.
Yes.
It's been kind of accumulating, but obviously, as you're aware, there are some really big projects going on in northern Missouri where a lot of that money's going to, but there are some smaller projects that we can get you a list for. But we did work with them on that core cut for this year, and we're going to be able to meet obligations for that. So, but we're happy to get that for you.
Okay. Well, I think only about big projects touching this. There may be projects out there that I just don't think about, and nobody's ever talked to me about, okay? That's what I'm trying to
You bet.
figure out. Thank you.
Certainly. Okay. The Flood Resiliency Transfer Corps is found on page 282. This authority was reappropriated to the Capital Improvements AB 17 reappropriation bill in 2026. And the Flood Resiliency PSD Corps is found on page 287 and was reappropriated to the Capital Improvement AB 17 reappropriation bill in 2026. The next core item found on page 292 is the Clarence Cannon Dam transfer. And the final core item found on page 297 is the Clarence Cannon Dam payment. And this concludes my testimony. I will turn it back to Deputy Director Buxton.
Quick reminder, is that forever, as long as that lake's there, Clarence Canyon Dam? I remember that being discussed multiple times, just don't remember. if
Right,
there's
no,
a
it is not. We have enough, we have it set to where I believe it goes through our commitments in about 10 years. So we do have an end date in sight for that. The funding that we have now is paying our yearly payment as well as paying down some principal, so we can get it paid down early.
Well, anybody's listening, I'm not complaining or anything, I just was trying to be reminded if there is an end date.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, we're going to move on to the Division of Energy. Emily Wilbur is our Division Director there, and she'll run through that budget.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chair, committee members. I'm Emily Wilbur, Director of the Division of Energy. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you today. The Division of Energy advances the efficient use of diverse energy resources through financial and technical assistance and education. We promote the affordability, security, and development of energy sources essential to supporting Missouri's economy. The division's budget begins on page 302 with the Energy Operations Corps. The governor's recommendation includes a core reduction in PS authority from general revenue, which can be seen under GR offset NDI on page 310.
Okay, before you go on to the rest of it, and this is just a general question, from my understanding, during the governor's State of the State, he talked about Missouri's all in for, I think, atomic, which used to be a terribly bad word, and still, for some people, it's a bad word, but not as terribly bad as it was at one time. Your division touches what within energy production? What areas
So
do you guys touch from here to here? Like if I burn a campfire and create energy out of that, you don't touch that probably.
Well, we are the non-regulatory division for the DNR, and so we focus on the policies that would help get us to the point of generation and the usage to Missouri citizens. So if you create a campfire that generates electricity, we would be involved in at least understanding how that would work and recommending policies that would be put in place. So as far as nuclear is concerned, that is our division that is putting together the state energy plan that the director mentioned at the beginning. And so we will be working very closely with stakeholders and working closely with those who will be involved with changing the landscape of Missouri's energy to be able to create that plan, which we anticipate coming out in September.
In my district, I have 2 new gas plants that are being worked
Yes.
on, going online. Where was this arm of government at whenever they were going through the permitting process? Are you, everything through Missouri Public Service then to you, or those, and one of them was co-ops and one of them was private IOU, did they work with you outside of the Public Service Commission on what their plans were? Or did you not touch those plans for those plants?
So as Director Schaefer had mentioned earlier, we're the policy group that looks at
Okay.
looking ahead and looking kind of at the landscape that we have now.
You've
and
said
seeing where
that
we need
twice
to
now. It's
go.
finally sunk in.
So
Nothing on the regulatory side.
correct.
But if we want information, what this will do going forward, if I want some information like that, you should be one of the source that I talk to.
Correct. Yes.
There's really a need, Senator, in the state to have someone that's looking at energy on a holistic basis, because the PSC regulates the IOUs, right? But that's not nearly all the energy delivery, right? I mean, I'm sure you receive your energy from a co-op, right? And they're not regulated by the PSC, and neither are municipalities. And so there's really a need to have some sort of entity that looks for a statewide perspective for planning. And I know since the time Director Schaefer and I came in, this was one of our top priorities, to really propel forward the energy division and make them kind of the state planner for energy, so that we had someone that was looking at the whole board. So they have great partnerships with co-ops, with the IOUs, with the munis, to really be able to look at that on a statewide basis. So yeah, if you have questions on that, and that's also why we pushed for this statewide energy plan to be managed by the Division of Energy, so that they could really look at all corners of the state and not just parts of it.
All right, moving on. Next on page 313 is the Energy Efficient Services PSD Core. It includes federal and other sourced E&E and PSD appropriations and a voluntary core reduction of encumbrance-only appropriations that is not needed at this time. On page 320 is the municipal utility transfer to GR. This includes a voluntary core reduction to align the fund with the remaining balance. On page 325 is the Energy Generation Infrastructure Core, and we are requesting a reduction of one-time pass-through authority in GR. This project will be completed in FY26. Next, on page 330 is the Energy Resources Study Core. The FY26 budget included a one-time reduction for a project that is expected to be completed after the end of FY26. This project was included in the governor's recommendation in House Bill 17, which can be found on page 335. On page 337 is the Missouri S&T Nuclear Reactor Program Core. This item has been moved to House Bill 17. On page 342 is the Wildfire Mitigation Grants Core. We are requesting a reduction of one-time pass-through authority in GR. This project will be completed in FY26. On page 347 is the Appropriated Tax Credit Core. The governor's recommendation includes an additional core reduction of $1 million for an appropriation total of $2 million. This concludes my testimony for the Division of Energy, and I'll turn it back over to Deputy Director Buxton.
All right, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Emily. We're now going to move on to our State Parks Director, Laura Hendrickson, and she's going to run through State Parks budget. Let me say, while she's coming up, we had our geological survey that has the soil and water program in its budget, and then obviously with Division of State Parks. Just so we're all on the same page, there's a pretty big issue that's going to be coming up this year when it comes to that. Those two entities are funded by a 1/10 of 1 cent sales tax that is renewed every 10 years. It goes before the Missouri voters for a sunset vote, and that vote is this year. And obviously, I'm a state employee. I cannot tell you how to vote on that, but we can sure share a lot of information about the ROI for taxpayers on that. And so I know that you, Mr. Chairman, can speak to the impacts of soil and water, especially to our rural communities, but also, and also Senator Nurnberg understands this as well for state parks and the impacts to tourism. And so I would be remiss if I didn't highlight the fact that we're going to be seeing that come before Missouri voters this year, and that's what funds a lot of these programs. So with that, I'll pass it off to our State Parks Director.
All right. Mr. Chair and Senator, I'm Laura Hendrickson, Director for the Division of State Parks. Missourians enjoy a state park system that is consistently ranked as being one of the best in the nation. Our 93 state parks and historic sites attract nearly 20 million visitors annually, showing Missourians continue to appreciate and seek the benefits of getting outside and enjoying their state parks, like your campfire. Please turn to page 353 for the Division of State Parks Operations Core. Most of our budget, as shown in the category Other Funds, comes from the Parks Sales Tax Fund and the State Parks Earnings Fund. General revenue and federal funds also make up a small portion of our budget. On page 362 is a governor's recommended new decision item for additional authority from other funds. Over the past 12 years, the Division of State Parks has added additional parks and completed 10 revenue bond projects improving parks across the state. On page 366 is a governor's recommended item to offset a GR core reduction. This will allow the division's total personal service budget to remain intact. Page 368 reflects a $0 core reallocation authority between budget units. And on page 373 is the Division of State Parks PSD appropriations with no change. On page 383 is a governor's recommended new decision item requesting additional spending and encumbrance authority of the federal appropriation. This additional authority will allow the Division of State Parks to fulfill the department's obligations for the LWCF, RTP, and ORLAP grants administered by the department per Chapter 258 of the Missouri State Statutes. This request in increased authority is due to grant threshold increases. A majority of these grants are used to provide funding to local communities for outdoor recreation facilities and trail development. Page 387 reflects a $0 core item that needs to be reappropriated. Page 392 reflects a core reduction of one-time authority. On page 397 is the State Historic Preservation Office operating core with no change. On page 405 is the Historic Preservation PSD appropriation with no change. On page 411 is the Entertainer Tax Transfer to the Historic Preservation Fund. This item reflects a governor's recommended core reduction of approximately 50%. And this concludes my testimony.
Thank you very much.
Question.
Senator.
You all continue to do great work and really appreciate all the work from our park staff, as always being so welcoming to the many, many guests that you see every year. Talk to us a little bit about the increase for park ranger salaries and where you stand on staffing today.
Obviously, that went into effect last year, but we just finished, we have 5 new candidates going into the academy. They should be out by May, so that's really great. The NDI also includes 3 additional park ranger positions to bring our staff up to 50.
Okay. And then are these rangers post-certified? Remind me if they're post-certified.
Yes.
They are, right? Okay.
Yes. They have the same power rest as.
Yeah. And so where do they stand in terms of salaries in comparison with other state law enforcement?
So the pay raise that went into effect brought them up significantly. Plus, our department is able to pay what we call differential, which is very nice because several of those officers have been with us for a while. So I would say now their pay is much more competitive.
Okay. But starting pay for a park ranger versus starting pay for a trooper, for example, do you know?
Not off the top of my head.
Can you just give us the breakdown?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep. Appreciate those. And I know those are tough jobs, and obviously they're in often remote areas, and I can imagine that those are hard to staff. So obviously we need good people there. Again, thank you all, and appreciate the efforts.
We appreciate your support
Thank
on
you.
that front last year, Senator, and I will say we're doing exceptionally well when it comes to having those positions filled. So I believe we're one vacancy once those 5 take the field.
Yes. No. Once
We
those
fully
5
staff.
on, we'll fully staffed.
Which is a great thing. So thank
Yes.
you. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm now going to call up Darcy Bybee. She is our Director of the Division of Administrative Support, and she's going to run through a few agency-wide items for us.
All right.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Good morning, Chair, Senator. My name is Darcy Bybee, and I serve as the Director for the Division of Administrative Support. I'm here to present the agency-wide section of the department's budget. This section spans the entire department, not specific to a particular division. I'll tell you there are no core changes, and there is 1 NDI in this section. So we'll begin on page 417, which is the Environmental Restoration Corps. No changes to this core item. 424 is the Natural Resources Revolving Services Corps with no changes. Page 430 is the Refund Accounts Corps with no changes. The next agency-wide item is on page 435. This is the Sales Tax Reimbursement to General Revenue Corps. There are no changes to this core budget item. The next three I'm going to lump together. They're all related to the department's cost allocation transfer fund. They're on pages 440 for the DNR cost allocation transfer, 445 for the House Bill 13 cost allocation transfer, and 451 for the ITSD cost allocation transfer. And there's no changes to any of these three items. We do have one governor-recommended new decision item in the agency-wide section. It's on page 456, and it is for a cost allocation transfer increase, which totals approximately $2 million. This new decision item provides additional transfer authority for planned cost allocation fund expenditures due to increased costs. On page 459 is the federal ITSD consolidated transfer, and there's no changes to this core item. And then the final agency-wide core item is on page 464, which is the legal expense fund transfer with no changes. So this concludes the agency-wide section of our budget, and I'll turn it back to the Deputy Director. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, we just have two left. So as the director mentioned in the beginning, we have two entities that are administratively under the Department of Natural Resources. The first is the Environmental Improvement and Energy Resources Authority, more affectionately known as the EIERA. And their Executive Director, Joe Boland, is here to run through their budget.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nurnberg. As Jake said, my name is Joe Boland. I serve as the Director of the Environmental Improvement Authority. The authority was established by the General Assembly in 1972 as an environmental finance and technical assistance entity that is administratively assigned to the Department of Natural Resources. We are governed by a 5-member board, which is appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. The board approves the terms and conditions of programs and financings, authorizes financial assistance awards, establishes an annual budget, enters into contract to carry out the business of the authority, and employs a staff and consultants to carry out its day-to-day activities. We're currently involved in 5 ongoing areas. The first is that we issue taxable and tax-exempt bonds to help support the state revolving fund. Of course, they issue low-interest loans for municipal water and wastewater projects. But we also issue private activity bonds on behalf of industry and investor-owned utilities. And to date, we have issued about $6.5 billion in infrastructure bonds. Related to solid waste, we operate the Missouri Market Development Program, which provides financial assistance to manufacturers and entrepreneurs that create products from recycled content materials, saving precious landfill space and creating jobs to support the local community. And we still have a Brownfields Revolving Loan Fund, which provides loans and grants for environmental cleanups at contaminated sites to prepare them for redevelopment. We provide paying agent activities to environmental restoration efforts for projects in Webb City, Springfield, and Kansas City. We also make payments to community action agencies for low-income weatherization activities on behalf of Division of Energy. And we also continue to work on the development of an energy infrastructure fund. Our goal is to provide a source of low-cost financing for the development of energy resources for the state and increase the deployment of energy projects throughout Missouri to increase grid resiliency and the state's energy independence. Finally, on page 469, you'll find the governor's recommended budget request for $1.2 million from other funds to pay for the day-to-day activities of the authority. The authority pays for all operating expenses, including retirement and health care contributions from its own funds. There are 0 general revenue dollars in this budget. And that concludes my testimony.
Thank you. Very good.
Any questions?
No questions.
Sound like it. Thanks,
And
Joe.
Remember this.
One more administratively included organization. Thank you, Joe. Is the Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance Fund, and their Director Kelly Ogletree is here to present on behalf of the board.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yep, I had to look at the clock. It is still morning. Again, my name is Kelly Ogletree. The Petroleum Storage Tank Insurance Fund is the fund that basically we serve two purposes. First of all, we are a financial assurance mechanism for tank owners and operators around the state who voluntarily want to utilize the fund to meet its financial responsibility requirements for either in the case of above-ground storage tanks, the Department of Agriculture, and underground storage tanks are regulated by the Department of Natural Resources. So we serve as basically their insurance to meet that requirement. The other thing we do is we pay for cleanups of historic contamination from certain tanks that may have had releases prior to kind of modern environmental laws and regulations. Historically, we're at about 50-50 as far as the money spent on those two different types of cleanups. What we call remedial, the historic contamination, is trending down, as you would expect. We're actually looking for that stuff now when people are doing construction or replacing tanks, and so we've found a lot of them, but we still have quite a few open cleanups going on. These are cleanups that take years to complete, so but they're trending down. Currently, the fund has about 461 open claims, and we cover about 75% of the tanks in the state. We're fee-based. About almost 83% of our monies come from the transport load fee, which is a fee on all the petroleum that comes into the state. The current rate there is $32 per transport load, which is about 8,000 gallons. So our budget starts on page 474. The first core is we're asking for, and the governor has recommended, no increase. We are, by the way, no GR to our fund. This particular core is for our personal services, our staff, as well as what you would think of as underwriting in private insurance. It's compliance. We verify compliance. The only thing you have to do to participate in the fund, we don't set rates based on risk or anything. You just have to be in compliance. So we go through and make sure that you're in compliance with the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Agriculture. And if you are, you can get in. The next core is on page 480. This is kind of the heart of what we do. This core includes claims. This is the monies that we spend to adjudicate claims and actually, pay for them to be done. We have claims adjusters all over the state. They go out all over the state to help tank owners and environmental consultants get those cleanups done. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I'm very proud of our program. We're 30 years in and very successful.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes the Department of Natural Resources budget. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate your all's work, and happy to answer any questions anytime.
Thank you. Well, what I missed was audit program expansion. I
Yeah.
remember going through that. Based on the average cost per audit, as explained on 18, why not add this funding to do all audits internally? I think we discussed a little bit of that.
Yeah, so the desire, so we have a lot of statutorily required audits to do. We obviously have a lot of soil and water districts to audit. We do a revolving program where we audit state parks. And then there are a plethora of other things that we could audit and need to audit internally. Up to this point, as the director mentioned earlier, we kind of have a mix of using contract and then two internal audit positions that we currently have. We do believe that we'll be a lot more efficient if we're able to get those positions inside of the agency and do more of them internally. And I think the biggest reason for that is because we are looking at a lot of the same entities as we revolve through. But I think our desire is to see that done more internally than to contract externally.
Are there, and there may not be an answer now, Lee, are there any audits required statute-wise that there's a reason why they've got to be an external entity doing those audits?
It's a good
And I don't
question.
think I didn't say anything to you earlier, but I thought about that there's some kind of requirement stating it can't be done by internal staff, an internal audit, because when you look at that and the dollar amount that you guys talked about, it seems like we ought to be going that direction everywhere, except for somebody may tell me, well, this entity, we can't audit them because they touch our money or something like that. Am I making that?
Yeah, no, I
I
don't
don't
think,
even know if I can end up with an answer yet, but I would understand why somebody might have decided, previous legislators, to say, no, we're not going to let DNR do this audit. It's got to be done out
so
externally.
that's not my understanding of why we got to kind of the position that we're in now, where we're contracting some and then using some internal. I think if I had to guess, that discussion was completely, do we have the FTE to be able to do that or not?
Okay.
I am not aware, and we'll review and make sure, but I'm not aware of any of the statutorily required audits for us to do that there is a mandate that they be done externally. I think we would prefer them to do them internally because we can do it more efficiently, but it's also a matter of there are some other programs that I would really like to make sure we get on a revolving basis to audit, and we're trying to add capacity to be able to do that.
Okay, well then this is the follow-up of it, and we're pretty well there. If this NDI is funded and we go there, I don't remember there being discussion in my office before what percentage of audits currently out there will be able to be audited internally, and how many, what number, what percentage we're still going to have to use external auditors to do.
Yeah.
When we were sitting there discussing it, I took it maybe if this was entirely funded, then there would be no external audits unless they were mandating to be done. So did I get to a question, Mr.
Yeah, I think so.
Buckner?
We can definitely give you the breakdown of what we anticipate that to be. But I mean, I think it's our intended purpose to try to move as many of them to internal audit as possible.
Okay. It may not get them all, but that's the goal to get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Have a great day. We're adjourned. We is two of us.